What up? I got muted there for a second, so let's try that again. Hello and welcome everyone to this 34th episode of the Backwards K Baseball Podcast. I am Chris Asbrock and I am your host today. I'm joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Scott Kaiser. Scott, how are you doing, my man?
Slow to unmute your mic and almost messed up on unmuting my mic, but I'm all right other than that. I'm good.
I'm sitting there and I'm going like it was showing that it was unmuted and then it pops up and I'm like, I'm done. That's two straight weeks.
I can never remember if it unmutes by itself after the intro or if I have to hit it manually, because the one time I just sat there and I was like, oh yeah, it unmutes as soon as it gets done with the intro. You started talking, nothing was there, so I manually did it. This time I'm like, okay, I'm going to manually hit it. And as soon as I hit it, it double tapped it. I'm like, come on, man.
Oh, that's the beauty of live podcasting. We're going to go with
that technology over here.
Exactly. Other than that, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Although good. we're hitting that dead spot, man. Injuries are popping up. It's Not a fan, man. Not a fan. A lot of big names coming up injured recently.
Yeah. So, do we want to touch on that first before we get into the?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Preview? Might as well, man. Like
do that just because it's kind of forefront. We'll just start with the biggest one. Is announced overnight that Garrett Cole needs Tommy John for the Yankees. He will be done for the season. He was looking to get a second opinion. But, the writing was on the wall earlier this morning. Really late Sunday, Cashman had come out and said it wasn't looking good. And then sure enough, like I said, overnight, like just before I went to work, the announcement came out that he would be getting Tommy John. Huge blow to the Yankees after last week. We talked about Luis Gil going down for the next 2 to 3 months, getting shut down with injuries to his shoulder. So all of a sudden, the depth that the Yankees had when they came to camp, and that we praised them for acquiring all offseason, dried up in a hurry. And Marcus Stroman now looking to be the fourth starter after coming to camp and kind of insinuating that he would rather not be with New York if it meant he wasn't going to be in the starting rotation. Now all of a sudden a key member to the starting rotation in New York. Things got ugly in a hurry, Chris.
Yeah, that went off the rails really quick. And I was actually earlier today, I was talking to our neighbors they're Yankees fans, and they were kind of having a little bit of positivity in the fact that it happened now, as opposed to, midway through the season. It's just kind of like, oh man. But here, I mean, at least, with Garrett Cole, happens now, you're out this year and then you can prepare to come back early next year. So in terms of timeline wise, there's that part of it, but man, that's two huge hits for the Yankees in their starting rotation. One thing you can look at is, the ability to try and now, bring somebody in to, hopefully help, stabilize the rotation. But man, losing one of the top pitchers in baseball, that's tough. It doesn't matter when it happens. But, when we did our AL East preview, actually to start everything off, we both talked about how important, a pitching, rotation anchored by Garrett Cole is. And, now you lose him, man, Luis Gil. That's tough, man. That's, luckily for the Yankees are the Yankees, and Brian Cashman can, like I said, can go out and address a need if possible. But yeah, that's tough go for the Pinstripes there.
Yeah, and again, you never want to see anybody go down, but big names with the Rookie of the Year and former Cy Young Award winner and Garrett Cole.
I'm hoping we get it out of the way now.
Yeah,
but all year,
yeah, man. But and the only thing that I'll say about New York fans trying to look on the positive side is it's just like there just isn't anything out there. Like I heard people talking about agents, the ones that were there kind of dried up in the last week. And then, there's nobody really looking to get rid of anything like right now, depth wise, because of something like this potentially happening. So,
well, here's two. If you have a feature that's available now, you've got, you hold all the cards,
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
That's the
Like,
thing, yeah.
if you do, but I mean, like at this point, not many teams even have the depth to say, like, yeah, we could actually deal from this because it's a strength. Because then all of a sudden you blink and you're like the Yankees, and you're like, all right, we're down to just 4 healthy bodies. Like, so I think if you do think you have depth, now's the time to just hold it real tight. I mean, until you absolutely have to, and it comes time to cut, and anybody that isn't going to be able to go through waivers, then you worry about it then. But if you've got guys, I know that Jordan Montgomery's name's been floated around a lot since the Diamondbacks had tried to trade him throughout the offseason and weren't able to find a trading partner. I did have to do, thinking about that name getting brought up a couple of days ago before all of this happened, and then it popping back in my head today when this news came out. It's like, would the Yankees go down that road again? Would they?
I don't know if they would.
Would they bring Jordan Montgomery back in again? I don't know if they would either. But again, when you start running out of options, like
desperate times call for desperate measures.
Yeah, I mean, how picky can they choose to be? But I guess we'll see. Another month. 3 weeks, I guess, till everything gets underway. But we've got regular season baseball next week for the Dodgers. And wait, who are they? Who are the Dodgers playing? Oh, the Cubs.
Cubs. I mean, we're 17 days away from opening day.
Yeah,
full blown regular opening day. Yeah, I mean that's tough to
really bring some orb.
Yeah,
I mean, and while we're talking about staying in the AL East when it comes to injuries, Grayson Rodriguez also dealing with something. His elbow, he's been shut down, won't pitch for a while, 4 to 6 weeks, I believe. So another blow to a potential playoff team there in the American League East. Orioles have high hopes, and more importantly, high hopes that Grayson was going to take the next step this year in his development. Was kind of poised to. Slowed last year by injuries a couple times. Not good, Bob. Anytime you're dealing with elbow injuries, obviously. At least they, nothing right now. They're just taking all the precautions and shutting him down from throwing. But rest doesn't always work. So I guess we won't find out anything until he picks the ball back up in another month or so. But yeah, again, not great for a team that didn't add a whole lot in the Orioles. I guess they're grateful to have a Charlie Morton, even though people kind of poo-pooed the signing. Now looks like it's definitely. I guess Cade Povich would be the next man up in Baltimore. Still time for somebody to emerge, but I just looking at the depth chart, I would assume that Cade Povich is going to fill in for the time being.
Well, that just shows too the loss of Corbin Burns. Not being able to get him re-signed.
Yeah.
That's a big piece right there that you're missing. That could have been a game changer, and you could have that softens the blow of Grayson Rodriguez at least. My God.
Yeah. But yeah, not a great way to start the show. But again, things happen in spring training, and injuries are part of the game. It kind of deja vu if you're a Yankees fan a little bit too, because it was around this same time last year where Garrett Cole was shut down in spring training because he was dealing with elbow issues, and then ended up coming back in June and finishing things out. But obviously now we know that was probably just a precursor to this, and that it was just a matter of time before it gave out to where he needed to. I believe, also this week they announced that Giancarlo Stanton is going to start the season on the IL too. He's got issues with both of his elbows. Like, might need surgery on both elbows to repair things. Would basically be done for the season himself if that's the case. So their DH, middle part of that lineup, had kind of a bounce back year for him last year. Again, not great. Not too many options on their roster currently too for DH specifically. So,
well, we kind of saw that coming though with Stanton. I mean, he's just a walking injury report.
Well, and I mean, we kind of talked about
it. He can't stay healthy. Yeah.
Right. Well, and we done talked about it with the Yankees and everything. Is just that they have assembled a team full of guys that are higher injury risk. I mean, Jazz Chisholm is a walking injury. Giancarlo Stanton's getting up there in age, and he's been hurt a lot lately. Pitchers are always taking time bombs. you know Things could go really bad in a hurry, and I know from experience, and we'll talk about it here shortly, about the Braves after last year and everything just going to shit because of injuries. So hopefully the Yankees aren't doomed to that, because it's not fun when you're sitting there just watching a completely wasted year. There's nothing you can do about it because there's only so many injuries that you can absorb along the way. No matter how much organizational depth you have, you can't overcome them all. So
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, that's tough. All right. Let's see. Well, is that all? I mean, that's all I've got for the injuries. What about you got anything else?
I believe that was all that we had.
That's all I saw.
This news. So let's go on ahead and get into the National League East division preview, the division that I'm most familiar with, and we will lead off with the Atlanta Braves, finishing just inside of the playoffs, coming down to the final weekend of the season last year, beating the Mets to sneak in the back door of the playoffs. They were then unceremoniously sent back home for the third year in a row in the very first round. The story was the injuries, nonstop. Ronald Acuna early in the year. Michael Harris spent time on and off. Ozzy Albies was injured. You name it, they went down. Spencer Strider, after 2 starts, done for the season. And don't like to make excuses, but there were plenty of reasons why. And yet the team still made the playoffs, which is a testament to the team that Alex Anthopoulos has put together. When healthy, still one of the best teams in the division. Expecting big things from them this year. We've talked about it throughout the offseason. I lamented they didn't do much by way of acquisitions, only bringing in Jurickson Profar to shore up left field. We didn't mention, while we were talking about the injuries, he was another one, a little bit of a scare. Jammed his wrist over the weekend. X-rays were negative. Should be good to go for opening day. But, another moment of silence and gasp, holding a breath in Braves country, because after last year, hoping that the baseball gods are a little bit nicer to us than that. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about this Braves team other than stay healthy. I mean, as long as they stay healthy, I feel pretty good about their chances. I won't give away where I think they're going to finish just yet. But, top to bottom, still one of the best lineups in all of baseball. Pound for pound in the NL East, up there with the Phillies as well. Like I said, not much to say about him. Had the Cy Young Award winner in Chris Sale. Again, health will be a major concern for him. And, the young fireball that everybody's excited about in Spencer Swellenbach. I have my reservations, not because I don't think that he's going to be good long term, but, you always worry about the sophomore slump, and I'm hoping that he doesn't fall victim to that. But, overall, on paper, Vegas says that this is the team to beat in the NL East for sure, and it's comes down to them and the Dodgers, the World Series. So, Chris, any thoughts on the National League East former division champ Atlanta Braves?
I like how you had to throw that in there. No, I don't have really much else to add. I mean, because this is a team that you had talked about, that if they stay healthy in terms of a team on paper, I mean, the Braves are. I mean, to me, they're the class of the East. I mean, you just kind of go through with what they've got, all around the diamond. Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Ozzy Albies, Austin Riley, Orlando Arcia, Profar, who they, like you said, had brought over, Michael Harris, Kellenick. They've got guys that, overall are just, solid all around. And then throw Marcell Ozuna in there. This is a solid team. Injuries got him last year, and I just remember talking to you about, you would shoot me a text and saying, "Well, there's another one down," or something like that. It was just like it was, throughout the entire year, it was like couldn't catch a break. But this is a team. If they stay healthy, they're going to show why they're the like I said, the class of the East. To me, it really comes down to aside from the health of the field players. To me, it comes down to the pitching staff. If these guys can stay healthy, this is a pitching staff that's got a ton of talent. And one I've and I was huge on was AJ Smith Shawver. I remember when they picked him, I told you, Scott, I said, you guys got a good one. He's one I absolutely love. Um, but again, I mean, Chris Sale winning the Cy Young last year, totally deserved. I mean, Chris Sale is, just had one hell of a career, and just would love to see him continue to keep it rolling. Um, so there's your guy at the top of the rotation. But again, if health is what it comes down to, so they're healthy. You're gonna have a fun season. Root for your Braves, my man.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to simplify it like that, but there are some concerns, because depending on health from Chris Sale, and like I said, depending on Schwellenbach, as a second year guy, not sure what Spencer Strider is going to look like coming back from the internal brace surgery. So there's question marks there. And then same thing with Acuna. Last time he came off ACL injury, he looked a little sluggish, was a little slow, a little timid, not the same. And then, then he went on to win the MVP the following year. So I don't know. He says he knows his body a little bit better this time and knows what to expect. Says he's feeling good. So we'll see. But, there are a lot of question marks, and it all revolves around health. So if they stay healthy, good days ahead. But if things kind of go the way they did last year, I know that they were able to kind of sneak in the back door this last time, but I don't know if after losing Max Fried and free agency and just some of the attrition that they've taken, assuming that some of the hits might be to the pitching staff, I don't know if they have the depth to withstand it this time around. So,
well, that's the thing. You had mentioned, you don't want to simplify it, but sometimes it is, for certain situations, that's literally all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you could tell that, with a team like with the Braves, injuries is what derailed them, and that's it. I mean, it's not like it was, half the team wasn't playing well or whatever, and it was just, no, this was strictly injuries. It kicked them in the ass, and so really it was just as simple as that.
Yeah, no, I mean, just a revolving door. Like if somebody would get healthy or be about to come back, and boom, somebody would take their place. Like it was maddening. I remember as a kid thinking like how fewer injuries there were in baseball seemingly compared to other sports, because it wasn't a contact sport, and there never seemed to be as many injuries. Now, I meant just taking away arm injuries. Arm injuries obviously were very common, but like, you torn ACLs and stuff like that weren't as common. And so it feels like, when it all happens all at once, you're just like, wait a minute, what happened to the sport where seemingly never, guys never got hurt? Why is it that the entire team is getting hurt? And the Braves have been kind of lucky, I guess, with health in the last few years, but man, when regression hits, it's kind of a bitch. So
no doubt.
Let's not spend too much time talking about the Braves because I could talk about them all night. Let's instead move on to the Miami Marlins, a team perpetually in search of the next exit of a rebuild. This year, no different. They finished in the bottom of the division last year. They look to do the same. At least that's what Vegas says. Only projected to win 63 games. They did absolutely nothing in the offseason, as you'd imagine. Projected to do it. In fact, they traded away, one of their pieces of the rotation that actually wanted to be there to Philadelphia. Wow, just that quickly. I'm like blanking. The worst when names just slip through your fingers like that.
Yeah. It's okay. My computer's like It's
Locking up.
Jesus Luzardo.
Jesus
Yeah,
Luzardo.
it's
Thank
like
you.
yeah, it's Luzardo.
I could picture his face and
My
and
God,
anyway,
nothing wants
trading
to
away
work.
Jesus Luzardo to Philadelphia. And like I said, other than that, didn't do a whole lot of anything. Depending much on rookies again, like they tend to be, depending on guys that are on their second and third and fourth teams. Not a whole lot to be excited about down in Miami. Few young guys here and there. Sandy Alcantara is coming back. That's something to be excited about. But coming back off of Tommy John, more or less, without actually saying it, him and the team are just keeping things afloat until they probably trade him out of there. He's saying he doesn't think he's on an innings restriction. The team is saying he is. The only reason you would have him on an innings restriction is if you're going to plan to trade him here shortly. And he's set to, become a free agent. They have one more year of team control, and then he'd be a free agent after that. We know the Marlins aren't going to pay to lock him up, and so the best way to continue this perpetual rebuild that they find themselves in is to trade away one of their only useful players and get more assets. That's Miami Marlins. They'll finish in last place. Xavier Edwards plays for them. That's about all I got. There's not much that can be said about the Marlins. They're one of those teams that we lament the fact that they don't put any effort seemingly into their club. And when they do, they make sure that the second that it becomes successful in any way, shape, or form, that they tear it all down, back down to the studs. Because why have anything nice, and why spend any sort of money on the product?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You kind of go through their, I'm going through their, their depth chart, and I'm like, I know like 4 guys.
If they didn't play in the NL East, I would be right there with you. But yeah, I'm familiar with them because I see them play the Braves. It's just,
Stowers and Griffin Conine are really the only ones that I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly who that is. Yeah. Other than that, it's like, okay, Connor Norby is another name.
Yeah, I was gonna say they have Norby. They have Ryan Weathers' kid, David Weathers.
Oh,
Ryan Weathers is
Weathers is David's kid. Yeah.
Yes.
But it's like, it's just, I'm just baffled every single year, man, with the Marlins. They can't. You wonder if it's ever going to work there. And I hate to be that guy because, we just saw a team get, ripped out of Oakland. But I'm like, nobody goes to the games down in Miami. There's way more other things to do down there than go to a Marlins game. Now, but you watch the Caribbean World Series or anything like that has games there, they're packed. So what the hell is going on? It's like, it just, I don't know. I shake my head, man. It's like the Marlins are one of those organizations that there's so much potential, and all they do is spin their wheels, and that's really it.
Yeah, I've kind of given up trying to figure out whether or not it's going to work. I think it's a failed experiment at this point. They've had World Series champions there, which obviously spikes interest and attendance for a little bit. But then, not that I blame the fans too much, because ownership has been horrible and they tear it all down when they have won, and they've kept the payroll at a minimum. Even when Derek Jeter was part owner, part of the reason he wanted to get out of the ownership group was because they were cheap and didn't want to spend, and the organization is poorly run. So, I hate to say it, it's been few owners, and it's just, they're just kind of spinning their wheels down there in Miami. There's no natural rooting interest. You mentioned, the fans can get real passionate down there, but they tend to get passionate for, their nationalities, and there's a lot of Hispanics down there and stuff like that. So that
it's a great World Baseball Classic host,
right? Yeah,
but that's it,
right? And they enjoy But as far as like the franchise hasn't given anything for them to latch on to either. So
can't get invested. Yeah,
right. They've never had a real identity. They've tried to sign guys to long-term deals. It's generally been the wrong guys. Again, poorly run franchise. They'll probably be dead last in the division. there's not much else to say.
Yeah, it's a damn shame, man, because like you said, an organization that's got, a couple World Series titles and nothing, and that's it. I mean, they just, yeah, they're so quick to tear it down and cheap as hell, and it's tough to get behind them. Moving back to Montreal, move the team back there. Shit, give me the Expos back.
Well, they are the former the nationals of the former Expos.
I know, yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, just send the team back there.
Like, General want to send a team back to Mons. Hey, look, I'll send a team wherever they're gonna root for it. How about that? Like, I want teams in cities that want to attend the games and want to root for them. Like, I'm tired of cities getting teams that then a few years after the novelty wears off, it's a ghost town. Like I said, it's unfortunately obvious that between Tampa and Miami, it's just, baseball there is just not going to work. Like, they got spring training, and that's a big draw. And, the Yankees are big down there because of the spring training complex, and a lot of New Yorkers retire there and all that. But, as far as a team actually putting a foothold in there, Florida, it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
It's good for a couple months down there, and that's it. And then, again, there's so much to do down there. It takes away from, I mean, what would you rather do? It's like, okay, we could go to the beach, or, do whatever down here, or let's go to a Marlins game or a Rays game. It's just not high on anyone's list once it gets, back into, I guess, regular, time to do whatever, I guess. I didn't really know where the hell I was going with it, but yeah.
Eloquent segue. We'll shift right on into talking about the New York Mets, the talk of the offseason after they signed Juan Soto to the bajillion-dollar deal. All the money went to Juan Soto this offseason. And they didn't do a whole lot else. They brought in Clay Holmes, but that was the big fish that everybody was going to try to figure out where he signed. And once he signed with New York, that was about it. They were able to end up bringing back Pete Alonso. I guess I should count that as one of their signings, even though he never left. They flirted with the idea of him not coming back and negotiated in the media, did a bunch of Met stuff. Bottom line for this team, they also hope to be able to repeat the success that they had last year. But it's going to come down to health for them as well. Kodai Senga coming back to the top of that rotation. And I think that's the biggest hole that I see for the Mets, is that they didn't really do a whole lot to address their pitching. Like I said, they are converting Clay Holmes into a starter from a closer from the Yankees. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But even if it is successful, a lot of question marks. Sean Manaea is going to start the year on the IL, another one of the recent injuries that we talked about, I believe, last week. But either way, he's going to start the season on the IL. Frankie Montas, also one of their free agent signings, going to start the season on the IL. So a rotation that already had some question marks surrounding it has even more question marks surrounding it as we enter the season. The offense should be pretty good, though. I mean, you add Juan Soto to the middle of any lineup, it becomes pretty solid all around. But the 1-2 punch of him and Pete Alonso should keep things exciting nonetheless. But again, I wonder if they have enough pitching. And gun to my head right now, I think they come up a little short, which is odd considering how much they've spent. But I'm not trying to be biased or a Mets hater or anything like that. If I was a Mets fan, I would be concerned about the starting rotation, because it's very thin.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, did they do enough? I mean, this is a team that was 89-73, tied with the Braves for second in the division. And, they made it all the way to the NLCS. They had a hell of a run. And then you add on, a guy like Juan Soto to that lineup. You brought back Pete Alonso. You got a rotation, like you had mentioned, Sean Manaea. You got Frankie Montas, who you said is who was hurt, Kodai Senga. What are you going to get from Senga this year? He's got the potential to do a ton. Edwin Diaz, as your closer. And looking at, a lot of the offseason moves, just by like kind of going through what, Fangraphs has, they brought in a lot of guys actually, but it's on like a 1-year contract, 2-year contract. And that's really it. I mean, it's, a lot of short term outside of the Juan Soto deal, where that's a 15-year deal through 2039. Other than that, everything it's 1 to 2 years. So they're not on the hook for long term on a lot of these guys. So it's going to be interesting what Steve Cohen's mentality is moving forward. Obviously, he was hell bent on Juan Soto. Like Juan Soto was going to be a New York Met, and that's how it was going to be, and they were going to outbid anybody. So, with that being the case, with these guys on expiring contracts or, within a year or two, you could see another complete roster turnover, with this Mets team. But I mean, they've got, like I said, they've got some guys though. I mean, Francisco Alvarez behind the plate. He's, like I said, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil.
Oh, but Francisco Alvarez, though, that's another one of the injuries that we should mention. Francisco Alvarez broke a bone in his hand. He's out 48 weeks. So,
it's not listed on the. That's great.
No, yeah, he
they must have not done a designation yet.
Yeah, so he is out for the next 2 months. But go ahead.
That sucks. Well, then, Luis Torrens is the backup catcher then. So there's that. Yeah, because what I'm looking at, they have they don't have any injury designation. They got Nick Madrigal, who I like Nick Madrigal, but he's on the 60-day IL. You obviously got Francisco Lindor, Brendan Nimmo, Jesse Winker coming back, Tyrone Taylor, and Juan Soto. So like I said, they've got some guys, but did they do enough? And bringing back Pete Alonso was a must, I think, in terms of what they had and what they had to do. And that was, you got Juan Soto, check. Now it's got to be Pete Alonso, check. And they did that. So, if they've got experience from a deep postseason run. If the pitching stays healthy, I think this lineup's going to be just fine. So that's one thing to watch out for. But I mean, I think the Mets are going to be, I think they'll be A-okay in 2025.
I think they'll be okay, but again, there's enough concern surrounding that rotation for my money that I don't know if it's going to get them back where they found themselves at the end of last year. We'll see, though. They're in the conversation, which is all you can ask for. In fact, Vegas has them tied for odds with the next team, the Philadelphia Phillies, as far as winning the second most games in the division, has each of them winning 90. Let's see. The Phillies also didn't make a ton of moves this offseason, but they shored up their bullpen a little bit, bringing in Jordan Romano. They signed a couple of depth pieces, but really what it comes down to with the Phillies is they didn't need to do a whole lot. Their team is pretty stacked as is, in a pretty good spot. As they continue to age, health is going to be a big issue for them. They did try to sign Jeff Hoffman, or actually rather they let go of Jeff Hoffman. He was one of their exits. Then Jeff Hoffman almost signed with a couple of teams before ending up in Toronto. But again, replacing him with Jordan Romano seems like kind of a wash there. Zach Wheeler, another year older, still one of the best in the business. But again, top to bottom, lineup looks great. They should be in the mix for the division title conversation with the Atlanta Braves. They're my pick to be the ones breathing down the necks of the Braves throughout the season. As much as I dislike the fan base and generally the organization, I find myself enjoying a lot of the players on this team, and so I can't hate them, but it's just because of the rivalry, that I don't want to see them win. But a lot of players that I like on this team, a very well put together team, and like I said, adding Jesus Luzardo was another move that can shore things up for them. And if Jonathan Sanchez takes another step, then yeah, I mean the rotation is already pretty solid. So, your thoughts on the Phillies and
Yeah,
their outlook this year?
they're going to be right there at the end. Just what you want to hear, but I mean they're freaking loaded. I mean, there's really nothing else you can say. I mean, you got Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Ranger Suarez, Luzardo, like you said, Christopher Sanchez already, JT Realmuto. I mean, JT's JT. Obviously, Bryce Harper, Alec Boehm, Cody Clemens, Bryson Stott. I mean, it's a Trey Tucker, Max Kepler. I mean, it's just you just go through it. It's like, man, this team's like you said. This is probably one of the most well-built rosters in the game. Period. Dave Dombrowski did just a phenomenal job with Philadelphia, and I mean, not really much else you can say. They're extremely talented. These guys just continue to to play their game. It'll be another highly successful year for Philadelphia, and like you said too. There's so many guys on this team that you can't hate. I mean, there's a lot of good dudes on there, and it's for you. It sucks more, obviously, being a division rival, but man, they are fun to watch, and that is the beauty of watching the game of baseball and being able to check out a bunch of different teams and everything like that. Phillies are a team that you definitely want to catch when they're on. So just because they've got just loads of talent and they're a hell of a team. So yeah, there's really not much else to say. They're gonna be right there with Atlanta going for the top of the AL or the NL East. I mean,
yeah, a lot to like about yeah, unfortunately, but a lot to like about the team overall, top to bottom, like you mentioned, very well put together team. Not a lot of holes. Just getting up there in age a little bit. I think they've got a few more years left on the window, but they haven't been able to finish the job despite a couple of deep runs in the playoffs. So, this year I hope they continue that streak. But they have what it takes to get to the World Series and win it. I do believe that.
Now you said they've got a couple years left in the window. Now, someone who watches NL East baseball a hell of a lot more than I do. If you're looking at Philadelphia, about how many years do you think they have left with what because they do have it's a roster full of like studs, but it's a lot of aging guys too. So like,
yeah, I mean, I think legit 3 more years, like where you can say like where they're in this window right now, where they're legit contenders, without making too many moves other than the occasional housekeeping moves that they make in the offices. I would say 3 more years, because then obviously all of your position guys are 3 years older. I don't know how well Schwarber's going to age out there in the outfield.
Yeah, I mean,
you've got the Harper and Turner. Should age all right, but Turner's going to slow down. A big part of his game has been speed. Yeah, I mean, it's just Father Time's undefeated, and so I just think like because of all their ages being right there, like they're all like 30. I give this core another 3 years, like that they've got, and then Castellanos is already kind of slowing down.
He's 33. I was just going through it. I'm like, he's 33.
I mean, he's gonna have to be replaced. Sometime. And so, yeah, I mean, I think 3 legit years and then maybe, 1 more if they want to kind of keep it open and like push for it one more time. But I think this core has about 3 more years before you start having to look to replace pieces and kind of moving and turning the page on this version of the Phillies.
I mean, it might even be less than that depending on how these guys perform this year. Like you said, Castellanos is already starting to slow down. You
Well,
know,
I mean, they've got Harper and they've got Turner for a while because they signed really long deals.
yeah,
Muto had signed his deals, so it's like some of the core pieces just aren't going anywhere. Stott's still, younger. Bohm, like they've still got it, although they've tried to trade Bohm
I was just gonna say, boom, they were
after
looking to
a time
deal.
or two. So, again, but I think the main core, Harper, Turner, and Schwarber, like I think that they've got like 3 more years
Yeah,
to surround those guys with what they've been doing.
oh, 1,000%. But it's the ones that, like you had said, like I mean, Castellanos was the one that you had mentioned had started to slow down. Like if he regresses again, then that could start kind of setting off some alarm bells, in Philadelphia. Like, oh man, like hey, wait a minute here. But
I will say Dombrowski is good about fixing and patching and
he's so
moving
damn good.
around and things will fly. Yeah, like so
Yeah,
I would say that if anybody can make sure that they stay afloat, it's Dave Dombrowski. So
1,000%. I mean, that's why he's one of the top execs in the game.
right.
Always has, always will be.
Well, and that's going to take us to the last team in our NL East preview. This team is interesting. I don't think that they will be super successful in terms of wins this year, but I don't think they're going to embarrass themselves like they have the last couple. They got some promising young talent. That's the Washington Nationals. James Wood is the name to circle there in DC. A exciting outfield prospect who was brought up last year, displayed what he had shown in the minors, has a lot of power, speed, and then Dylan Cruz, drafted at the same time and actually ahead of Wyatt Langford just a few years ago. Got a cup of coffee there at the end of the season. Didn't show much with the bat, but was able to steal, I think, 12 bases in 24 games or something along those lines. Displayed an incredible amount of speed. We know he can hit, has the hit tool. We know he has power. They're hoping for big things of both of them. That's two huge cornerstones. And then you still have CJ Abrams, as long as he can get past the fact that he was sent to the minors to end last season after boneheadedly staying out at the casino till early morning hours on a road trip. He should, assuming that he's learned his lesson in the offseason and has grown up from it, he's another cornerstone piece for them. They brought in Nathaniel Lowe from the Rangers, a good veteran piece there to play for first base and kind of usher these younger guys into hopefully the successful era they're about to embark on. As far as pitching goes, a little bit less, less top end names. They do still have Mackenzie Gore, who once upon a time was a top. A top name to watch, but he struggled over the last few years to kind of get going. He hasn't really found his groove. But people are saying that maybe this is his year. I hope that it's not. But again, they're brewing something nice there in DC. I like the pieces that they have put together there so far. I still think they're a couple years away. But at least they're interesting and they're trying. They did bring Mike Soroka into on a free agent deal. I believe it's just a 1-year deal, but he's looked pretty solid in spring training. A former Brave who suffered through injuries on top of injuries on top of injuries, ended up with the White Sox last year, rebuilt his value, and looking to be the 5th starter there in DC. Could be a nice trade chip. When the Nationals do end up falling out of it, if he can hold the success that it looks like that he has early on in spring and showed kind of with the White Sox at the end of the year. But your thoughts on the young Nationals and their ever-emerging core?
I mean, the promise is there. A team that finished 20 games under 500 last year, 71 and 91, are not. I mean, they're just. I mean, they've got so much young talent, and it's just a matter of just letting these guys develop. It's really what it comes down to. I mean, it's going to be one. It's going to be a team to watch to see how these guys, do moving forward. But in terms of position players, I mean, they've got guys, and like you said, when they ultimately fall out of contention, Look for a guy like Josh Bell who signed a 1-year deal to be dealt. If he's having, maybe a season, I don't know. I mean, it looks like he's probably going to be their DH with Nathaniel Lowe being first base, but he could be a guy if he's having a successful season. Maybe he's dealt for something, but still got Paul DeYoung on that team, Ahmed Rosario, CJ Abrams, like you had mentioned. Um, the outfield's where it's at, though. They've got the outfield is where this team has the talent. Like you had mentioned, James Wood already. They've got Alex Call, Jacob Young, and Dylan Cruz. Dylan Cruz is slated right now, and look from what I'm looking at,
Starting
he's
right
slated
field,
to start out in right field for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dylan Cruz is one that I followed, during his time at LSU. Kid's an absolute. I mean, he's a gamer, man. Absolute gamer, fun as hell to watch. He gives Nationals fans, a lot to look forward to. Like I said, they took their lumps for a long time. They've built it back up the right way, through the farm system and the prospects and everything like that. Again, they're just a couple years away, but once these guys hit and keep going, they're going to be in contention for a couple years. So that's something to be excited about in the nation's capital. But other than that, it's that these guys, they just have to just continue to develop. And again, a team that was 71 and 91. I said that they were 20 games under 500. I was wrong on that, but the potential's there, for major improvement. It might not all come obviously this year, but they're still a couple years away. But once it happens, though, again, they're going to be a fun team to watch. But this is a team that is going to be firmly planted in fourth place in this division, unfortunately. But the name of the game for them this year and next year is continue to develop and bring guys in that are, they're going to help you win. And right now, they've got a really good formula in DC.
Yeah, I like I said, the foundation that they've built there, and they should be at least a fun, interesting watch. They are trying. They've made moves and they've shifted things around, and I think that they've proven back when they signed Jason Worth, before they made the run to ended up winning the World Series. It took a little time to build things up there, but he was the first big domino in one of the in that run. And they went and spent a whole bunch of money, and everybody wondered why they would do that and kind of overpay for Jason Worth. But it was because they believed they were at a point where they were ready to take that next step, and they need somebody to kind of set the tone for how things were going to be, and for the younger guys to see. And I think that they're on the doorstep of maybe doing that again and dipping their toe back into the free agent pool and kind of supplementing things to help this franchise and young core take the next step. So, time will tell. And it's all going to depend on how these guys develop too, obviously, because that could speed up that timetable or delay it slightly. But I like the way things look there in DC. I think they've done the rebuild the right way, and they have a lot of promising young pieces. So, I am going to let you go first for the sake of bias in this and everybody calling me out on it. But you give your final thoughts and finishes for the National League East.
I think this is a division that is going to finish exactly like it did last year, with Philadelphia on top. The Braves.
Son of a bitch.
I knew. You want you to shut the hell up. Shut up right now. But yeah, I think Philadelphia right now, they've got too much in terms of the rotation as well. I think is stronger than what Atlanta has. But Atlanta's going to be right there. Last year they finished 6 games off. I think it's one of those that'll be 3-4 games maybe, if that. It's going to be a tight race for the top 2. The Mets will be there at 3. I don't know if they, in terms of rotation wise, theirs is the biggest question mark. Offensively, I think they're going to be okay. Their main question mark is going to be through that rotation, and that's what we're going to see come to fruition this coming year. They just don't have enough compared to the Braves and Phillies, so they finish in third. Nationals in fourth because they, again, like we had said, they just have a hell of a lot more talent than what the Marlins do, and the Marlins look for them to be in the basement of the NL East again.
Well, it should surprise no one that I'm going to have the Braves finishing first in the division.
And that's okay. That's okay, Scott.
Yeah, no. In all seriousness, I do have the Braves getting back on top, and it's all going to come down to health, though. I mean, I am terrified because being a Braves fan, I'm very keen of what could go wrong, and how little it'll take for everything to kind of fall apart again, like it did last year. And once you see it fall apart once, you're very sensitive to it, maybe doing it again. I am very concerned that injuries could derail yet another season of this team that is on paper, poised to win it all. They're the only threat, I believe, true threat to the Dodgers in the National League. I think Philadelphia is close. I guess I could say they might be 1B, but really, yeah, the top two threats to the Dodgers in the National League reside in this division. Braves 1, Phillies 2. It's just a feeling. I think the Braves are going to be on a mission this year to get back to the top of the division, prove that last year, the only reason that they lost the division is because they were injured. And if they can stay healthy, that is where they belong and at the top. Philadelphia finishing just behind them, and I think it's crazy. They'll be there in the playoffs. And either way, I think both of these teams are making the playoffs. I actually also think that the third place team, the Mets, will be in the playoffs as well. I think this is going to be very similar to the American League East, where we see three teams make the division or make the playoffs out of this division. I like all three of these teams. And as we go through the Central and the West, they'll make it more clear as to why I think that these three are going to be the ones that just so happened to be that we started with the East. But I just like the way that these three teams are put together and stack up with the rest of the National League. And I have the Mets taking one of the wild cards. So Braves, Phillies, Mets, and then the Nationals, like we discussed, promising young core, still growing, still a lot to get to before they see like real success. But they're watchable. They're headed in the right direction. And then the Marlins, they're just gonna be there playing baseball, trading off everybody, feeding the rest of the league come trade deadline. What little players they have left of value, honestly, because they've purged quite a few of them off, and they're down to the youngest guys there on the roster. But it's a shame. But Miami will be finishing in fifth there in the National League East, and that is how I see things shaking out.
Yeah.
So, Braves, Phillies, Mets, Nats, Fish.
Yeah.
I mean, and I like I said, I think it'll be one of the most competitive divisions in baseball, if not the entire league. And I think that you'll be able to see three of the best teams in all of baseball within this one division.
1,000%. I completely agree. Yeah,
and I think the Mets
very
too,
top heavy.
Yeah, and I mean, you talked about the Mets having just a couple of those, a bunch of those 1 and 2 year deals. I am concerned because they positioned themselves. We had heard that they were going to go hard after Soto for like 3 or 4 years. There were those rumors or whatever, and then it came to fruition. And I think that they kind of learned, or at least Cohen rather, learned his lesson about throwing just a bunch of money at anybody and expecting it to work out. And I think he's going to be more calculated in who he starts handing these contracts out. It's not to say that it will for sure work in every case, because that's just not that's not how it goes when you sign guys through free agency. But the high end dollars, he's going to spend them on a generational talent and Juan Soto, and start putting them on guys like that, where it's more money in the bank type things, where it's just like, well, look, you're going to get like, future Hall of Fame type production for at least 2 or 3 years out of it. And then what happens from there, you worry about later. Now, I mean, they signed Soto to a 15-year deal, so they're hoping for more than 2 or 3 years production like that. But what rambling on to say that I just think that Cohen has kind of learned from his early, I just want to spend money on names and this will work and I can just throw money at this and everything will be fine. And it's just, yes, you have to throw a lot of money at it, or you should throw a lot of money at it, but you have to be more strategic and smarter about it. So I am worried that long term, the Mets are setting themselves up to be in this conversation for a little while, as long as Steve Cohen is there, actually.
And
which is unfortunate for me.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's what. Yeah, it's pretty shitty, but but again, it's taking a step back and realizing the best way to handle, business in the game, and that's what, there was all that talk of Steve Cohen and his huge wallet and everything like that, and him just throwing money at everything, but now he's smartly doing it, and that means a lot, moving forward, because it's, you're not just throwing money at whatever. You're actually making smart baseball moves. Because now, like I said, there was a bunch of contracts on, that are for 1 to 2 years, and then boom, get out from under those and just continue to position yourself as other players on that roster, continue to fall off or whatever. You just, replenish and replace and keep rolling from there. So, Mets are going to be there. It's just a matter of time once they, once the top two begin to falter, if they do it, at all. So.
Yep, I agree. Like I said, I believe that the Mets are going to be around for the long term, and this is the beginning of that. Even if I think that this year might be a slight step back from what it was last year, just because last year was unexpected, and expecting now to make another run all the way to the National League Championship Series might be asking a little bit too much. But that's enough Mets talk for the evening.
Yeah.
Oh God!
Go hurl.
I feel like I need to go shower. Good God!
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's gonna do it. So I guess that's a good place to get me talking about showering. But unless you want to hear more talk about the Mets, that's enough. So we appreciate you guys joining us, and thank you for listening. This has been another episode of the Backwards K Baseball Show. He is Chris, and I am Scott, and you can find us wherever you find all of your fine podcasting. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We are on the Impact Sports Cincinnati Podcasting Network, as well as the Craft Brewed Sports Podcasting Network. And, of course, you can find us here every week on YouTube throughout the season and the off-season and all that good stuff. Next week, we preview the National League Central Division, where if this week was all about me and how I feel about my division, next week will be Chris, as he talks about the Reds and how he thinks the Central Division will break down. I'll have thoughts as well. But thank you guys for joining us. We look forward to seeing you guys next week. Cheers, everybody. Have a good night.